Hello, and thanks for joining me on this episode of Simply Saturday. For today's Fast and Easy card, we are making a Christmas card, and we're going to do a bridge card, but we are going to do a very simplified version of a bridge card because these can get pretty fancy with lots of steps and lots of pieces. We're going to kind of dumb it down and make it fit into our category of fast and easy. All right, we're going to build our card on a piece of cherry cobbler cardstock, but I want to show you how I got there. Like, my piece is already cut and scored, but I want to show you how I got there. So I'm going to do the example on this piece of Secret C, and then once we've done that, I will jump over to the pieces that we're actually using on today's card. I'll save these ones for another card. All right, my card base is 4¼ inches by 11 inches. And the first thing we're going to do is score it at 5½ inches, and that will give us our fold. So I am going to put this left edge at 5½ inches. And this is my scoring blade. This darker gray is the cutting blade, so we're not cutting. We're just scoring. And now I have a score line there in my card base. All right, the next thing we're going to do is take that score line that we just made, put it at the 2-inch mark on your trimmer, and now with the cutting blade, we're going to make a cut. So you can take the left side and set it aside. This is the piece with the score. And then we're going to take this piece that's left over, slide it to the left, again to the 2-inch mark, and cut. All right, so now we ended up with these two pieces here left over. So I'm going to move my trimmer out of the way. And I'll show you what we have. All right, so we have this piece, which we have scored, and then we were left with a large piece that we cut at the 2-inch mark, okay? And then all of these pieces became available. Okay, so I'm going to move that out of the way and bring cherry cobbler in so that we can build our card. All right, so once again, here's my base. There was a piece, after we cut it from the score line to the 2-inch mark, after we cut that, we ended up with this piece, and then we cut it at the 2-inch mark and ended up with those pieces. All right, so that's our pieces. I also have a white piece that's 4 inches by 5¼ That is going to be the inside panel. And I have 2 pieces of designer series paper. They're both 4 inches long. One is 1¼ inch wide and one is 1¾ inches. We're going to attach those to our card. So the smallest one is going to go on the smallest piece of cardstock that we cut from the big sheet from our base. And then as I'm doing this, you can see last week's Fast and Easy card. Let's see, that would have been episode 197, I believe. We did a card with this, and now we're using the flip side. Okay, so that piece is in place. This other piece that we cut, we're going to set aside, and then this piece of designer series paper is going to go here on the top fold. You can do a lot with a bridge card. You can get really fancy and use some window sheets so that it looks like it's floating. You can do a lot of decorating. As I said, for today's card, we are keeping it fast and easy. All right, there's our designer series paper in place. I need to fold this with my bone folder. Let me get that because it wants to just keep popping open. I did not reinforce my fold right there on the crease. That's going to help a lot. Okay, here's the other piece. All right, now this piece that we also used when we did our cutting, this is going to become our bridge. So this is actually going to hold this bottom piece in place so that when the card is open, it all opens in one piece like this. All right, but we're going to do our decorating on here before we do that. So often on a bridge card, I would add maybe a secondary print of designer series paper, which we're not going to do to keep it moving fast. And often I would punch this with a decorative trim, maybe like a tag punch or something, and we're going to skip that step as well. So all I have here is a die cut. Now this was actually cut straight from the designer series paper itself, and the die put on it, let me show you those. That is Christmas greenery, and I used this die to actually cut this shape right out of the designer series paper. Absolutely gorgeous. All right, and then I'm also using the small flower and the leaves in just a moment. And I'm using words from the coordinating set. All of this goes with Traditions of Christmas, and this is called Traditional Labels, and we're going to use the 'Tis the Season stamp. All right, so this was already die cut for me. I mean, I did it before, so I'm not showing you how to do that, but you, based on what I just showed you, would put the die onto your piece of designer series paper, run it through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss, and end up with this die cut. This is going to go vertically like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and attach it to that piece of cherry cobbler. I'm going to keep my glue mainly in the center of this die cut because some of the little edges here might hang off the red cardstock and I don't want them sticky. So just the glue down the center. All right, they don't hang off too much. Just a teeny bit on the length. All right, so if you wanted to add a little bit more, you could, because those are actually hanging off much less than I originally expected. There we go. All right. Now, in order to put this all together, and before we put the inside in, what I'm going to grab is some low-tack tape. On Amazon, this is called artist tape. I use this very often when I need to hold a die down to do die cutting. This is what I use. But we're going to use this to kind of help us as we dry fit this into place. So I'm going to hold my card right here. I'm going to put this bottom edge lined up exactly where it needs to go. Okay, so it's all lined up down here on these edges, like so. And then this piece is going to go into place. And what I'm going to do, one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to tape this down so that bottom piece isn't going to move. That might be all we need to do. If I just do that, I think we're okay. All right, I just don't want this bottom piece shifting when I'm picking this up like that. Okay, see, it stayed. Okay, so we want to put our adhesive at the top only of this and the bottom only, not in the middle. And I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm going to put my glue only at the top and only at the bottom. All right, and then turn this over and go ahead and position it. The grid on this green paper is really helpful. It's kind of helping me make sure it's nice and straight. All right, like so. Now, once this is glued down, of course, this is grabbing on to this bottom piece, and this can come off. And we have the top flap of our card all constructed. Okay? All right, we're going to take our white piece. Now, something to keep in mind. When you go to do your stamping on this, you need to remember that a lot of this white piece is exposed when the card is shut, okay? All of this is exposed. So for my taste, I don't want any stamping in that area. So I'm going to keep my stamping only up here. If you wanted to do some stamping at the bottom of the white piece, you could, as long as this is going to cover it. All right, so with that in mind, I think that it's easier, so you don't have to worry about it at all, to just make a little pencil mark. And that way I know not to do any stamping below that pencil mark, and then we'll go back and erase it. All right, so I have the 'Tis the Season stamp, and I think I'll go ahead and use, I was torn on what color to use because I am going to add a flower. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's use Cherry Cobbler for the words. So that matches our cardstock. I'm squeezing this video in while I still have some daylight. If you have been a viewer for a long time, you know that I prefer to do my stamping early in the day. I have a lot of natural light in my stamp studio. My brain is also freshest earlier in the day. And then as it starts to get dark, I end up with strange shadows and so forth coming in here. So even when I add lighting. So we're fighting it right now because it is the end of the day. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stamp this somewhat centered in that area that I marked off, like so. Okay, that looks good, and that Cherry Cobbler is really dark and rich. I have found that this ink, as it dries, lightens up a little bit, so it looks very, very dark right now, but it's definitely red, and it will lighten up. And now my idea is coming together really well because we're going to switch to real red. By the way, in this paper is both Cherry Cobbler and real red in the patterns. So we're not doing anything strange by combining the two reds. All right, and then I'm going to just put two little flowers. Let's see if we want them full strength or if we want them stamped off. Let's see how dark it's going to be. I think we're just going to go with it, full strength. All right, so one of these I want way up here in the corner. And I think I'll put another one. Another one's going to fit here without it encroaching below my pencil line. Add that right there. And then let's take Old Olive. Add some leaves. Now you've had the opportunity to see me do several projects with these bundles and the coordinating paper. The paper has been so popular, the Traditions of Christmas, that it has been sold out. At the time of my recording, it's currently sold out, but as of the week, at first it said November 17th, and then I think it actually got moved up. So I'm hoping that by the time you're watching this video, that paper is available again. Anyhow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this video to a different bridge card so that you can see that. But if you go back and look for Stamp Club videos, let me tell you what those dates were. You can see several more projects with this paper and these stamp sets. All right, so if you want to search back to some videos that were published the beginning of October, okay? So like right around October 8th, you can see about 4 videos where I use combinations of this paper and stamps and cardstock, okay? So you'll have a lot of inspiration there. All right, back to this card. I've got my Old Olive and my leaves. I am going to stamp off the edge, so I've brought in a little scratch paper here. And then I wasn't sure if it needed it, but I think it does. The flowers kind of look funny without a center. So let's go ahead and drop a center in. Now, usually I've been doing that with Secret C. Let's keep it fast and easy and just use the green since that ink pad is already out. All right, sometimes we do things that are a little bit different if we're trying to save time. So I'm gonna stick this on the same block here, and we're just gonna drop those flower centers in. Oh, that one, I couldn't see very well. Let me move that off. And that, there we go. Okay, let's remove that pencil mark. We can just erase it. It was nice and light. And take some adhesive and get this into our card. All right, you're going to have a little bit of the cherry cobbler border going all the way around. Like so. And as you can see, all of our pretty little stamping is hidden there. You could easily have added a flower down here if you want to. And I think the only thing that I'm going to do on here is add a little, let's add some twine and a couple of gems. So let me get my red and white twine. I was so happy to see this still available. And then also some, how about some gold sequins? All right, we'll use these traditional sparkling sequins. All right, a little bit of, let's see if I can find the end here. I've noticed, this is what I've noticed, that in kits, when they include the twine like this, it has a little piece of tape on the end and it makes it really easy to find. But when you buy a whole spool of it like this, it is sometimes difficult to find the end. All right, I think I've got it. Because this one is brand new. I had a different one that I used up already. All right, well, this is taking too much time for me to find it. That's funny. I usually don't have this much trouble. Usually when you kind of rub your thumb along here, it wants to pop up. But in today's case, that is not happening. So what we do, I don't mind doing this. I'm just going to pull from the center because there should be a end here somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and snip it and get it started. And we'll figure out the ramifications of that later. There we go. All right, and I don't even need very much of it, so I'm gonna get about 5 inches. Let me measure that. And cut it. Maybe I'm gonna give myself 5.5 inches so I can tie a bow. Wow, the hardest part of that card was getting the twine started. All right, I can usually do a pretty good bow with only about 4 or 5 inches of twine, but it does take some practice. So if you need to use a little more, that's understandable. All right, there's our little bow, which I'm gonna put right there. I need a glue dot. Let's do it. pushing the very center of my bow right down into that glue dot. Give the tail a little snip because this side is kind of long. There we go. And let's just add some sequins before it gets completely dark here in my studio. All right, let's do a large one. I'm just going to use the gold, although the green and the red would be really pretty too. And a small one over here and a medium one up top. And there we have our fast and easy Christmas card, our bridge card, without all of the extras, streamlined to make it fast and easy. And there you have it. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed any bit of this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. And I would love to know what you liked about it, if you plan to copy this card, and also if you plan to share this inspiration with a friend. Thanks so much. See you next time.